another episode of Writer's Block. I am not, obviously, in the studio today, but I am your host, journal staff writer Sean Reider, live from the home office. Today we have a great conversation with Patrick Mayhorn of the Aggship, previewing New Mexico's pretty big game against Utah State and none other than former head coach Bronco Mendenhall in his first year with the Aggies. Before we get to our conversation with Patrick, though, I do want to, as always, encourage you guys, if you like this podcast, if you like our other podcasts, Talking Grammar, or Prep Central, or any of the other good work that the Journal's been putting out lately, I highly recommend you subscribe to the YouTube channel, the YouTube channel, the Journal YouTube channel, and just support the work. Listen on Apple Podcasts, follow them there. Listen on Spotify, follow it there as well. Your support, obviously, it helps us do stuff like this week in and week out. And as always, too, I want to encourage you guys to tune into the live shows that my colleague Jeff Grammer and I do put on Twitter and YouTube every Tuesday for Jason X weekly press conference. And then after every football game, doesn't matter if it's home or road or whatever, we will be doing one this Saturday after the Utah State game. And we'll have a little bit of men's basketball preview content in there with UNM playing an exhibition game at Washington State. So should be a good show. But before we get to that one, I want to share this one with you guys. I hope you enjoy our conversation with Patrick.
If you enjoy our podcast, please like and subscribe and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us bring you more content like this. You can find this episode and all of our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. See the show notes for a discount code on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading news.
All right, today I am pleased to be joined by the great Patrick Mayhorn. He covers, he's creator of the Aggship, an outlet that covers Utah State athletics. Patrick, how are we doing today, man?
I'm doing well. Good to be back. I think we talked around this time last year, and some of the coaches were flipped. A little bit of a change.
A lot has changed. I have been kind of really looking forward to this interview because I covered Bronco Mendenhall for a year. It was one of the more interesting years I've ever had in this business. I'm really curious for you, man. I mean, what has it been like for you covering Bronco Mendenhall and the Bronco era at Utah State?
It's, I would imagine, a lot like it was at New Mexico. He's a strange guy, and that's for all good and bad. He's a strange guy. I've joked before that he kind of speaks in riddles. And he's very hard to transcribe. I've found he'll go off on tangents and he'll have all these different things to say. And sometimes you don't really know where he's going when he starts a sentence. And I don't know if he knows entirely where he's going when he starts some sentences, but he's a fascinating character. And he, when he takes over a program as he did at New Mexico and as he's done at Utah State this year, it's encompassing. It is all him. It all becomes Mendenhall. It all becomes his approach and his method for how he develops these programs. And it feels like you're caught in a windstorm a little bit because there's just so much happening all at once, basically. And I would imagine that the experience was fairly similar last season. It's just that's the part of the deal when you're bringing him in, it seems like.
Windstorm is probably the best way I've heard, at least to put it, in my opinion. I mean, it is. Everything changes really quickly, and all of a sudden there's all these new things, like, oh, they all wear white t-shirts now, and they don't have numbers, and everybody talks the same. Everybody says earned not given. It's kind of a crazy deal in a lot of respects. But with that in mind, obviously, like, New Mexico fans have really looked forward to this game, man. I mean, they are fired up for this one. They really want to let Bronco hear it. At least the core fans really want to. How has he kind of talked about this game in particular in the lead-in?
He has really, really tried to stay away from even really making reference to the animosity. He referenced it once at his pregame press conference on Monday. But he did it in the sort of the standard way of, we're just focused on us. We're just focused on the football game. The players who came from New Mexico specifically have been more talkative about it. Bryson Taylor has talked a little bit about it. Javen Jacobs has talked a little bit about it. A couple of the other guys who weren't there, but who are obviously now familiar have made reference to it. But Bronco really sort of he tried to just push past it as best he could, and he didn't really he didn't really give much of an answer. He alluded to knowing that it was coming and that there would be a lot of energy and a lot of emotion in the stadium, but he's trying to not let it be the main storyline that his team is hearing and that they're focusing on, which is again pretty standard for Mendenhall. He's very much looking to control the narrative whenever he gets a chance.
Yeah, really standard, and like I give him credit. He was very candid about it at media days this summer in particular. But I did not expect to fire up the press conference this week and expect him to talk a whole lot about it. But this is in a lot of respects a really interesting game. Both teams are 4-3. New Mexico is 1-2 in conference. Got the first one against Nevada last week. Utah State is 2-1. This was a team that Utah State in the preseason I kind of had a hard time with to a certain degree. Obviously, totally different roster in so many respects, but they brought some nice guys back, and however few, and brought some guys over from New Mexico that I thought were pretty good. What kind of were your expectations for this team heading into the season? How hard of a time did you have kind of figuring out, all right, what is this going to look like?
Yeah, we were in a similar place of not really knowing exactly what to expect because I mean, there were positions that just didn't have any proven players in them. Like their receivers had not played at the high level, like with any level of consistency whatsoever. Guys had taken maybe 200 snaps in a 4-year career. And there were, the defense was a little bit more experienced, but still fairly green. And it was, I think, 70 transfers, 70 new guys, transfers and freshmen that they brought in. And it was very hard to get a sense for what to expect from that. There were some spots that we felt better about than others. Quarterback was fairly established, running back room was fairly established. The secondary looked like a strength. It has been less of a strength once the season has actually started, but it looked like a strength on paper. And then the other stuff was just kind of, we'll see how this works. We'll see how the offensive line works. There's a lot of new starters. They've got two incumbents there, but then it's three new starters, and that's before your starting left tackle goes down with an injury against Vanderbilt, and he hasn't played since. There's been injury trouble in some of those spots, and it was very hard to it was very hard to know what to expect. And then it was also through the first 5 weeks or so, very hard to know even what the value was of the games that they had played,
Mhm.
what could be gleaned from it, because they had played a UTEP team that I think is 1-6, an Air Force team that's what 2-5 now, a McNeese team, and then Texas A&M on the road and Vanderbilt on the road, and those are not terribly reflective football games. And so we're still really only starting to get a sense for what exactly it is that this team is capable of now that they're playing relatively equal talent levels in Hawaii and then this past week in San Jose State. We can start to get a sense for what they're actually doing. But until that point, it was really just still everybody kind of guessing.
I am deeply envious of you, by the way, in covering Bronco this season because we have the availability reports in the Mountain West. I think it's great. I'm glad they're doing it. I wish we had them last year. I asked a lot of injury questions and never got anything back, and never got anything back in response. But I guess I don't want to ask with everything you just kind of said. How has this team surpassed your expectations? Because I think to a certain degree, you're dead on when you say it's tough to glean things from kind of the early part of the schedule that they had, the highs and lows of who they were playing. And also, I kind of felt similarly in terms of the lead into the last season for New Mexico in regards to I didn't really even have any expectations for certain positions because I just didn't know what they were going to look like with what they brought in and all that. With that being said, I mean, has there been any spots that have kind of surprised you in particular? Like, okay, they're better at this, or they're not as good as I thought in this one spot.
The buy-in is higher than I thought it was going to be at this point. The amount that the roster seems to be in on what they're doing, um the emotions on the field after a win to get to 4-3. Guys just like hugging coaches, hugging each other's and crying, and just a team that seems to be bought into what it's doing. I was not really expecting that 7 games in to this tenure because the last one was very different from this one, and there aren't that many holdovers, but there are some, and that was the talk of the offseason was trying to repair the culture. Um, and I don't think through 7 weeks that the culture has really been bad. It seems like they've repaired it fairly well, and that has exceeded my expectations. That they've not really had trouble getting everybody on board with this. On the field itself, the the offense has been better than I thought it was going to be. The offense has been more dynamic than it looked like it was going to be on paper. Coming into the season, we knew that Bryson Barnes was a good fit for offensive coordinator Kevin McGivern's offense. He was the one who was at San Jose State for several years there under Brent Brennan. He would have been the like Chevin Cordero years. And so that's a system that suits Bryson Barnes, and we felt pretty good about that. I felt pretty good about that. I like Miles Davis and Javen Jacobs a lot at running back. They've been pretty good, but the passing attack has been surprisingly good. The passing attack, especially explosiveness wise, they really pulled from power conference receiving cores with guys who really hadn't done anything at these power conference schools. Braden Pagan came from UCLA. He's been the leading receiver for the team. He's been very good. Brady Boyd came from Texas Tech. He had played a little bit more, but still not very much. He had played mostly when he was younger. You've got, and that's, I mean, they had two other receivers that they brought in as transfers who still haven't played. They've been hurt all year. And so the third spot has gone to Anthony Garcia, who's a quarterback, and he's still listed as a quarterback. He's just playing receiver. And the passing game is still pretty good, and that's surprising given that the pass protection hasn't been all that strong, and the receivers really shouldn't be good, at least on paper, but they have been pretty solid, and the passing attack has worked out well. I think that that's been the top thing is that the offense has been shakier in recent weeks. It's got some stuff to work through. It has not been very good on the offensive line really all year, but it still continues to put up points and to play with a lot more lethality, a lot more explosiveness than I was really expecting to see from this group. They're not very efficient, but they can get going in a hurry.
Yeah, Jason Eck called it. I mean, during the press conference yesterday, he said it's a pretty damn exceptional offense. And
Yeah.
obviously, Barnes has been a huge part of it. I think 13 passing TDs, two INTs, like a 64% completion percentage in that neighborhood at the very least, and then
Yeah.
seven rushing TDs. I thought he was awesome to watch last year. I think he's pretty. I think he's been pretty fun to watch this year in a lot of respects. How have you seen him? I don't want to say maybe take a step forward, but how has he kind of fit this offense?
I think he's definitely taken a step forward. I think that that would be fair. He is the talk coming into the season was about how this was his year. This was the time where he was finally going to be the starter and not the guy who had to come in and save the day, which he did for like 4 years, across various stops. He did it at Utah State last year. He did it at Utah for years and years and years. It felt like Bryson Barnes was constantly being promoted to starting quarterback because somebody got hurt at Utah, usually the same somebody. And he, this year, being able to prepare as the number one guy, being able to go into the year knowing that he's not going to be pushed for that spot, he just looks more confident. He looks more comfortable with what he's doing. He looks more assured that he is not at risk of losing his job and that he can really command the team and be that leader. He's very blunt. He's very open about what's working, what isn't working, and the team has responded very well to that. I think that they respect him as he's got to be one of the oldest guys on the team in the room. And he's as an actual player, he's been very good for them. He's done what they need him to do. He doesn't have the best arm, but it's good enough. He keeps his eyes downfield well, even when he is looking to scramble. And he's really he can extend drives. He can make plays that otherwise wouldn't exist in the offense. The way that he runs, the way that he escapes from the pocket, the way that he keeps plays alive, and is still looking to throw the ball and usually does throw the ball even when he escapes the pocket. He turns, what would be third and longs into third and shorts, and he turns third and shorts into first downs. He's very, very good at just filling the gaps that are missing in this offense and making those plays to keep drives alive that otherwise just wouldn't happen. They would be punting. They wouldn't be scoring, and a lot of that goes back to Bryson Barnes.
Defensively, Utah State brought over two of the, in my opinion, the two of the better players on New Mexico's defense last year. Not a good defense, by the way. But Noah Avenger, corner, he mostly played safety last year, frankly, because of what they had going on in the secondary. But Avenger, from what I've been seeing, is having a pretty nice season at Utah State. And then Bryson Taylor is also over. I liked what BT did last year. What are you seeing from this defense at this point? They're giving up 31.6 points per game, but that is again such a weird number to put in context because of the teams that they played at this point.
Yeah, I'll mention real quick also D'Angelo Mays
Yeah.
from New Mexico in the secondary. He's been playing a lot. He's been like starting.
He has like
Um,
two INTs, right? Like,
yeah, he's had a couple INTs. He's struggled on the outside in coverage the last couple weeks because the starting corner Courage Ugo, who came up from BYU, has been out. So Mays has been playing there as well. But yeah, the defense. I think that the secondary is probably the easiest way to explore it and to kind of explain it because the front has been relatively solid. I don't think that the front has been amazing, but I've not had a ton of complaints about the defensive front. They don't get very much pressure, but their three down front has worked fairly well. They have pretty good size up there. They haven't been gashed a ton on the ground. They've hurt some, and they've purposefully given up some of that. Like against San Jose State, they were not trying to stop the run. They did not care about stopping the run. They wanted to drop eight into coverage on every play so that they could stop Danny Scudero, which they did. But the front has been solid enough. The linebackers have been good. John Miller's been excellent for them at linebacker. The secondary has been very strange and has been very inconsistent. And I think part of it is because they have not had Ike Larson until 2 weeks ago. He was suspended for the first 7 weeks of the season, rejoined the team ahead of the Hawaii game. The secondary was a complete mess in the Hawaii game. They were not ready for it. They did not know where to put him, at least not along with the other guys who they wanted to play there. And then this past week, they seemed to figure out where to put him. They put him at deep safety alongside Brevin Hamblin, who's a 6'5" transfer from Utah Tech, who has struggled heavily in pass coverage, but he's a very big hitter and has made a lot of plays in run support. And they moved Noah Avenger to corner because Noah Avenger has also been playing safety here. He was also spent the first 5 weeks of the season holding it down at safety because Ike was out. And so now he gets to play as a number one corner. He has been fabulous in that role. He's not put a foot wrong as the number one corner. I think he's allowed like 2 receptions on 9 targets in 2 games as a number one corner, like 20 yards. He shut down Danny Scudero. I mean, he just took him out of the game. And so as they solidify that, I think that the defense should start to see some improvement. They're limited. They don't have an elite pass rusher. They don't really have the depth in the secondary that they need, especially with a starting corner out. There's not enough speed back there, frankly. There's not enough athleticism back there. But I think that they've started to get better. They've started to understand better what it is that they're supposed to be doing on third downs, especially, and on 2-minute drills, and situational football has been a very frequent talking point of Mendenhall's the last couple weeks, and I think that's sort of the next thing that they're trying to do. But yeah, the defense has struggled. The defense has just not really clicked all the way, and there's been a lack of cohesion, a lack of communication that I think should start to repair itself as they have an actual consistent secondary now, and as they have guys playing in their best positions. Like I think Avenger's a better corner than he is a safety, and that's saying something because he's a good safety. But I think that that's going to benefit them down the road. Maybe not right now, maybe not this week, but eventually it feels like they're heading towards something there now.
this is, I think somebody made this point in Broncos press conference this week. For Utah State, you're coming off Hawaii and San Jose State, who run different variations of what essentially is the run and shoot and all that. Not going to be the case this week with New Mexico. This is a team that really wants to run the ball. They have not been particularly explosive in the passing game, but and they really weren't all that explosive in the run game either last week at the very least. But it's a totally different style in a lot of respects. How are you expecting this defense to kind of approach playing this New Mexico offense with what they kind of present in the run game?
I'm curious because we really have not seen what Utah State does against a normal team. Um, we've
I tried
seen,
to. I had the same thought. I threw on Vandy for a bit, and I was thinking about it. But it's like, well, Vandy does a lot of different things, frankly.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, and it's like Diego Pavia is a difficult comparison for anyone.
yeah,
I don't know if that would be fair to Jack Lane and co. Because Diego Pavia is kind of his own dude. And so I don't really know because like the Air Force game is obviously not representative. Air Force is very different from everybody else. And then you play two run and shoot teams in conference play, and UTEP is also sort of air raid adjacent, and so I don't really know exactly what their plan is going to be against a team that runs and passes almost the same amount. Runs even more than it passes a little bit by a little bit. Like that's the only run first teams that Utah State has played against have been in the SEC or Air Force, and none of those are really going to be trying to do it in the same way that New Mexico will. And so I don't really know what to expect. I think that the base of their defense they'll probably stick to for the most part. They do mostly zone. They'll blitz from zone on passing down specifically. They have not been especially good at forcing passing downs, and they've done fine once they've gotten to them, but they've not been amazing at creating them. And they'll probably roll with the same three down front that they've been using. That would be Tyree Morris and Carson Tujay at the end spots, who have both been really solid for them. Gabe Iniguez up the middle at defensive tackle, who was one of the holdovers originally, a transfer from New Mexico State. He's been great for them defensively. Linebackers John Miller, Bronson Olival, I think are suited well for a game like this. They've been playing really well. They've been tackling well. They get to the ball fast, and the defense has done well to swarm on tackles. It sometimes has been way too far down the field, and it doesn't really matter at that point because you've already given up 20 yards. But I think that they'll probably go with something fairly standard, at least for Nick Howell and for this defense, which is pretty zone heavy. You'll get outside linebackers involved. If Will Holmes is healthy, he'll be involved. He was not healthy last week. I don't know what his status is for this week. I've not seen the availability report yet. And as you mentioned, Bronco certainly isn't going to tell us. And so we'll see on that. If it's not him, it would probably be freshman Chris Joe, who's been pretty solid. Matira Brown has found his way into the rotation as well. They're not going to blitz a ton. They don't seem to blitz a ton. The time that they did blitz a lot against Hawaii, it did not work. And so I would guess it's going to be fairly zone heavy and that they will try to at least slow down that running game. I don't know what they're going to focus on specifically. If I did, I suppose they probably wouldn't want me saying it out loud anyway. I don't know. But I I would be surprised if they don't start with the run game. I think that that's going to be the first thing that they try to take away because that has been, that's been a strength. That's been something that you have to deal with. All of those different solid New Mexico running backs there's not necessarily, I don't think, a star of the bunch. And you can correct me if I'm talking out of turn there. I don't know. I have not seen a true superstar, but there's just good players. It's just good runners, and it's a good scheme that Eck has, and I think that that's going to be the primary focus of the defense is slowing that down and forcing New Mexico to pass more than it wants.
yeah, and that really, I mean, that was the formula for San Jose State that worked out well. And it was the formula for Boise State that worked out well. So that's kind of what I'm expecting too. But this is yeah, look, this has been an interesting series lately. Obviously 2 years ago, the Levi Williams game, just absolutely heroic overtime win for Utah State, ended the Danny Gonzalez era.
That was
New
a
Mexico.
miserable football game. One of the worst football games I've ever seen.
I,
Awful.
compared to some of the other games New Mexico played that year, that one was pretty good.
Oh,
I'm not gonna lie.
that
I
was
enjoyed
just
that one.
I remember just the pit in my stomach. It's like, oh no, I'm gonna have to cover another game of these guys. They're gonna go in a bowl game. I hate these guys. I don't want to cover them anymore. It was miserable.
Yeah, that was one of the more fun ones from that year. And then obviously last year in Logan, just an awesome back and forth game. New Mexico late comeback, I think a 50-45 win sealed by Demetri Johnson's pick with like 1 minute left. Just a wild game. Obviously, Bronco was on the field, a very emotional post-game interview after, and then who would have thought basically a year later that he would still be there, but in a different capacity. Do you have, this is a weird one to pin down. I was talking with Jeff Grammer about this yesterday. Like in some ways we could see it being a shootout, in other ways I could see it being kind of a mucky, weird game in a lot of respects. What do you have a score prediction, and do you just have kind of a general feel for how this is going to play out on Saturday?
I score wise, I'm guessing. I think I think it'll be fairly high scoring. I don't know that either one of these defenses is good enough for it to not be fairly high scoring. New Mexico's has been better than Utah State's to this point. I trust New Mexico's defense more, especially with limiting explosive plays. The issue is that that's really not a great strength to have against Utah State this season because Utah State seems to find explosive plays against everybody. They've done that against Texas A&M. They've done that against Vanderbilt. Those are, if you can do it there, you can do it pretty much anywhere, and they've been able to do that. So I think that Utah State should be able to score, and New Mexico obviously should be able to score as well, because pretty much everybody has been able to score on Utah State's defense this year. It's really just UTEP that wasn't able to, and McNeese. And I think that New Mexico's offense is pretty clearly better than UTEP's and McNeese's. It should be, I think, back and forth. It should be a lot of fun. I've been thinking in the 30s, the range of the 30s for both teams. I would say I've gone back and forth on it. I will continue to go back and forth on it until Friday when I sit down and actually write the rest of my preview. I would say probably Utah State's not been very good on the road at all. They've lost all of their losses have come on the road. They've yet to actually win on the road. I think New Mexico wins 35-31, but I mean, who knows? It really feels like it's just going to depend on which defense shows up more consistently on third downs and which quarterback holds up better, which quarterback is able to extend more drives. And I think I trust New Mexico more on the first front, and I trust Utah State more on the second front. And so I'll give the nod to the home team, but I feel like they're pretty even.
Yeah, I'm gonna be going back and forth all week too, because I the prediction that I had yesterday that I put out is not the prediction I have today. But Patrick, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate
Yeah,
you joining today, and always great insight, folks. You can follow his work at the Aggship, but does great work there. Patrick, thank you again, man.
yeah, thank you.